With my experience and your ambitions, let's navigate the world of business, making informed choices and capitalizing on every opportunity. Welcome to Profit or Pitfall. It's been a couple of weeks since we've actually done an episode for this segment because 2024 has been incredibly busy for us. Lots of new assignments that either were put on hold last quarter or last year because the capital markets just hadn't quite figured themselves out yet. Not that it has yet today, but we certainly have seen a little more confidence in terms of wanting to get deals done, where last year we've had numerous deals that we walked up to the altar with a capital source, and then at the 11th hour fell apart. So we're happy to be very busy. Definitely different types of assignments where we're seeing more notices of default, people filing bankruptcy and wanting to find some type of debtor in possession or exit financing to get them out of bankruptcy. They're just using it as a defensive method to protect their investment, but also it's very clear that the lender needs to protect their investment as well. So it's a little bit of give and take. And guys like us as brokers, we're able to step in and help people meet in the middle, where everybody can get paid off and also maybe finish their project or move on with their investment. And today I wanted to share a little bit of analysis on a type of property type that I really like, which are RV parks and campground. And this particular deal that was referred to me, pretty typical story, which was nobody wants to fund an RV park ground up construction. And the reason why that is normally is that there is a very large land component, and it's very hard if you plan to foreclose that you don't have a building structure. You might have a building that is, like your convenience store for the RV park, where the showers are and maybe the actual office. But aside from that, it's a lot of dirt with some infrastructure for utilities, for the electrical, for the sewer, and some water. But other than that, it's very hard to figure out an increased value because it's really kind of similar to assisted living. It's a business. And so it's oftentimes when you want to talk to a bridge lender that's a private funding source, they're not too excited to do deals like this. And so a great type of capital product for this is the SBA, because it's technically owner-user, assuming that your capital stack is structured that way, where you have people that are going to be either owning and operating or have a direct liability in terms of they're putting their personal balance sheet on the table to make this work. And that's the case here. And so I wanted to share a little bit about how to get these deals done properly where you're not frustrated, because I have run into lots of potential investors, especially newbies, who are trying to figure out a way to do something where they're not looking to become the next big huge investor. They want to own and operate an RV park, and that's what they want to do. That's all they want to do. And so oftentimes the 7A product or the 504 product is a great way to get something like this done. So we'll walk through that, the 7A and the 504. In this particular deal, what I wanted to show you is the way to get something like this submitted successfully. I've been into this business long enough, and sometimes clients will get frustrated with me because I ask for so much information up front, and it's oftentimes they want to just send me a rent roll or just send me a construction budget, and it's just like, well, why can't you just give me a quote? Just give me the rate. And that is just one part of the entire transaction to make it work, to make sure you can actually get to the finish line, get your funding in place, and start your project. And so this is a business plan that I designed for a particular client. I've turned it into more of a sample template to kind of protect the privacy of the client. But this was something that I put together for them. And you can see here, it is a very typical business plan because this is technically a startup and a ground up. So you have a summary, you have a company description, and these are very important. What is it you're offering? Who's your target market? And what kind of statistics have you done in terms of research to prove that, hey, I believe this RV park will be successful. In addition, there's market analysis. Who's already there? Is this market saturated with other RV parks, or are you finding a place that is very unique that that you can keep your location filled up? Organization management, the type of experience that's going to be on the ground doing the day-to-day. Marketing and sales, how are you going to get that place filled up? And then actually, what is the funding request? And this is a really important part of how deals get done in terms of proving, especially when you're working with a broker, that you understand what it is you're doing. And then most importantly are the financial projections. The great thing about the SBA is that they are technically the lender of last resort. If you've gone to a bank, if you've gone to private money and they've all said no, the SBA is there to kind of be the catch-all for deals that require a little bit more, what I call, breaking your head a little bit and, kind of making it work, because this is truly an owner-user type of project. So as you can see here, we kind of give the basic breakdown of why this is going to be a successful project, kind of a location, who they're marketing to, and what's going on in the area. So in terms of the company description, you have here some amenities, right? You have showers and restrooms. We have what kind of utilities will be offered in each of the RV slots. There's going to be a convenience store that offers sundries and supplies. And then the pavilion, a place where you can go hang out, and then a high-speed Wi-Fi. A little bit about the target market. In this case, they're targeting the workforce occupants, the workforce community in the area, because there's two very large employers in the region. We'll talk about that a little bit more in terms of how you structure that in terms of your proposed revenue to make this work for the SBA. We talk a little bit about the recreational culture that's there. We offer some statistics. And that's really important to show that you know what's going on in your area. I put together some detail on the state parks. There's a really, really big recreation component to this, so that you can kind of get comfortable if you don't know the area, to understand, okay, why would you choose this place if you don't know what the area is about. In addition, we went ahead and we did some analysis of the existing RV parks in that particular region. And the great thing is that a lot of these are at near or full capacity, which shows that there's an opportunity to pick up the slack in terms of offering something different. In this case, they're marketing towards the workforce, but also towards the recreation community. And as you can see here, the competition, there's some that have, some better offerings, and other ones that are not so good. So there's definitely showing that there's a potential here to make this place a success. Next is organization and management. You want to show that you have real good people at the table to make this work. In this case, you have one person who's kind of the balance sheet, and then the other person who's going to beat the boots on the ground. This is an on-site owner-user RV park. And you put a little bit of story in terms of like, who are these borrowers? What are they about? Do they have the capacity to make this work? As well as marketing and sales, we talk a little bit about, once again, who are the end users, and then what are the strategies. There's going to be digital marketing, Facebook ads, posts, those types of things, partnerships with the local businesses, tourist attractions, and even employment agencies, in this case, to drive the referrals. And in this case, the client has very good contacts in the community, so he knows that he's going to be able to put the word out, hey, this RV park is open, we're looking for clients. Email marketing, of course, a little bit of how they plan to do the online booking and payment, how they plan to get involved in the community, ensure that the customer experience is something that will have people coming back time after time. And then here's the funding request. As you can see here, there's a sources and a uses. And we'll walk through kind of what the cash to date looks like, the actual budget itself, the reserves, right? Because the goal is not to have to pay out of pocket while you're putting this thing together. The fees that are associated with the transaction, the lender processing fees, the SBA guarantee fees, and that gets you to a total number. So that way you can understand how much money you actually need, or do you need to put more money into the transaction to make this work. Here we talk a little bit about kind of where the project is. In this case, this is a shovel-ready deal. They're ready to go. They're going to do it in 2 sections, which I think is really smart, because that way they can start generating revenue a lot quicker instead of waiting till the very end to start generating revenue. So they're going to do basically 22 of the 36 spots first on this west section get their C of O, start getting revenue. Then they'll do the east section separately to finish up. But either way, they're being realistic about the facility. They're only thinking about 75% occupancy year round. And in this case, to be compliant with SBA guidelines, you need 51% weekly and or daily occupants. So the most that they can really project for monthly is 49%. Okay, here are the projections. And this is a very, very important part of the analysis that goes into getting an approval from the SBA. Because if you cannot show 24 months worth of how this is supposed to work, it's not going to happen. You will not get the funding. And so one is you want to make some assumptions, right? Like in his case, they want clients, they're going to try and reduce their credit card charges, right? By paying Zelle or Venmo. They're doing, I'll show you the revenue weighting that we did. We know that the property is going to get reassessed once they get their C of O. And then we assume when that reassessment occurs to show how it affects the cash flow. And so this is probably the most important part here. I'll zoom in a little bit, is the revenue weighting, WEIGHT, right? In terms of how much weight are you putting on each of the types of revenue. So in this case, if the revenue type is they're going to charge $55 for daily, $260 for weekly, and $675 per monthly, you can see how that breaks down still from a daily perspective. Now, when you decide to say, okay, well, we think we're only going to be about 75% occupied, you're beginning to put a weight on how that revenue shows up. And so in this case, we're thinking 49% monthly, 25% weekly, 26% daily. And so that kind of shows how many actual occupied days are for these 36 spaces and what kind of revenue you can expect per day. Now, if you begin to annualize that, now you're really cooking with peanut oil, because now you can really kind of see, okay, how much are we really generating? So you have a potential revenue here monthly. They plan to make a small profit on the utilities. They're going to bill you if they're making $1 or being charged $1 for electricity, they're going to charge you $1.10. So they have a little bit of profit margin there, and then a small amount of incidentals with their convenience store. This number is probably going to be higher, but we're trying to show that this is a true business plan, that not necessarily being dependent on the incidentals revenue, that we're really focused on selling or renting out those RV park spaces. And then there's the breakdown of the expenses. Now here's the real part where maybe sometimes people's brains explode, right? Because they're like, oh my gosh, all these numbers. And this is where guys like me bring value to the table, because we do this stuff in our sleep. So when you're ready, we're happy to help and put together a business plan for you for your RV park, or even your ground up retail, industrial, multifamily. We've done it all. So here's some basic details. One is we make some assumptions about the ramp up in terms of how fast they intend to get this to 100% of that 75% occupancy. And so because the person on the ground here knows the area very well, he's lived there for a long time, he's already got people waiting. So he knows that he can ramp up pretty quickly in terms of getting the revenue to by the 4th month. And so here you can see the average monthly revenue, the utility revenue that we talked about, the incidentals, right? And then those costs of goods sold. There's going to be some cost of those cans of Coke, the bags of chips, the bags of ice, that kind of thing. And so here you show how you have your gross margin. They may decide to sell more things, and so we can add those later on. And then you have your actual operating expenses, or OPEX, right? So there's going to be accounting, advertising, automobile that's going to be going and picking up things, credit card fees, permits and licenses. And so as you can see here, this is probably the biggest one, is this property tax. And so right now the property tax is very low, and we're thinking by month 4, the county will come out and say, hey, you have really good property here. We think it's worth a lot more now, which they'll be right. And so that property tax bill is going to go up pretty substantially. And then we have here the utilities, the expenses for website and social media and trash, etc. And so as you can see here, total expense percentage of sales, right? And so now as they're ramping up, right, it's going from very high to lower. And this is really important here to kind of show that you know what you're talking about, because if this number is too low, banks are going to push back. They're going to say, well, we don't think that your numbers really reflect what's going on in the real world in terms of taxes, insurance, operating costs that really are real in the real world to make this place work. And so when you're getting below, I would say 35%, you really got to go back and think about, even if you're the best operator on the planet, what the bank is going to look at and what they're really going to offer you. And so here are your net profit margins, about 54%. This guy happens to have a property at a very low basis, and he's turning it into something much more valuable. In addition, there's probably going to be some cash outflow in terms of computers, electronics, furniture, initial inventory, and then of course their own draw. They plan to pay themselves for real. They got to pay their loan, and there's probably going to be some expense for the web development to get the booking system in place, etc. So here you have your total cash outflows, and you can see here you're deducting the 189 and then the 151. So here it kind of shows your cash position at the end. So you do this for 24 months, and I'll show you here again. Here's the other assessment. We said month 15 back here. We said, hey, we think that month 4 and month 15 is when they're going to, change the assessment on the property value, because they will have finished the second phase. And so these types of details really show the lender that you're very serious, that you understand how money works and the potential operating expenses that are coming. The great thing about this is that with this submission, with this business plan that we submitted, it probably took the client about 3 to 4 weeks to get everything together so that I could do the work that I do in terms of being a broker. Lots of phone calls, lots of video calls or Zoom calls, lots of asking very hard questions as to, do you really know what you're talking about? Really taking the time to look at the construction budget. I'll show that to you here. Here's the construction budget. We went through line by line. And one of the things that can sometimes be overwhelming if you're not familiar with ground-up construction is understanding how the numbers work in terms of how the sources and uses plays out at the end of the day. Here we have what are called your hard costs, the actual things that are physically touchable, the equipment, the plumbing, the foundation, the steel framing, the HVAC unit, the propane. You get to a number there. Your soft costs are your plans, your permits, your engineering, all that. And then you look at how much money have you spent to date. In this case, the client bought the property. They've spent money on plans and permits. They bought the metal building. There's the gravel entrance and roads that they've already spent money on. And so this money is very important to make sure you keep all your receipts so you get credit for that. And the way that works out is here. Once we look at the full construction of the full total cost of this construction, right, which is the purchase of the land, the actual construction budget itself. This is something that people tend to forget. Like, well, we know what we're doing. We know my contractor's the best. That's great. You're still going to want a contingency. So that's often 10% of the construction budget. The reserve that's required for you to not have to come out of pocket each month while you're putting that together. Fees related to escrow and title, the packaging fees, fees related to the construction administration, which is basically having an inspector come out and saying, okay, you guys laid the foundation? Great. Go ahead and cut the check for the next part of the contract. So in this case, you have $1.1 million in terms of the actual uses, where all this money is spent to help this project get to the certificate of occupancy. And so that helps to figure out, okay, well, if they've spent $203,000 to date, then maybe they need about $963,000, probably $933,000. Let's say they're not going to get that money back, but we got to make sure that these numbers, end up even to make sure that everything is panning out. So this will end up happening is you get to a number that's agreeable. Sometimes clients still have to come out of pocket to pay for what is expected in terms of this total cost to make this work. So I'll stop there. I hope this was helpful in terms of getting a project off the ground, especially for RV parks. They're great property types. If you're not aware of them, feel free to email us. We're happy to share more on things that we're looking at for potential investment. Thank you for watching Profit or Pitfall. If you have a deal that you're looking at and need some help, feel free to submit it to us, and you might be the topic of our next episode. We'll see you soon. Take care.